What is up? We've got some news, update information, live information.
Line principle of this is the job of Congress. Congress is supposed to act. Congress is supposed to move forward with legislation on behalf of not just the American people, but for our allies. And so it's hard for me to give an award or a trophy to a speaker for doing the job of the speaker. But we are in unique, unprecedented times. So here we are today in a kumbaya moment.
Here we
President
are.
Biden was
LZ.
awesome on it too. So, he made it happen too.
All right, LZ, Heidi, Barbara, and Mike, thank you so much. This was a fascinating conversation. I appreciate you all coming up here in our last call. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announcing its newest members, why one of the new inductees may be turning down the honor. Our panel weighs in after the break.
So these bags are identical, but one is real and one is fake.
This feels like real.
So I got a bunch of super fakes.
Some of these are chef's kiss.
This is a counterfeit.
Really? The Louis Vuitton, the Prada, that's beating the worst president in history.
The New York District Attorney accusing Trump of illegally falsifying business records to cover up payments to porn star Stormy Daniels to keep allegations of an affair out of the tabloids before the 2016 election. Trump has pleaded not guilty. In a statement yesterday, Trump saying, in just 24 hours, I'll be back in Biden's corrupt court. The jury of 7 men and 5 women includes a woman in product development, 2 lawyers, a retired wealth manager, a speech therapist, and a teacher at a charter school. Prosecutors haven't said publicly who their first witnesses will be. Among the possibilities, former National Enquirer publisher David Pecker. Prosecutors say Pecker agreed to be the eyes and ears of Trump's campaign by identifying damaging stories about Trump and keeping them out of print. Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, also expected to be a key witness, along with Stormy Daniels and former White House Communications Director Hope Hicks.
It's going to be up to the defense to try and discredit the witnesses on cross-examination, point out inconsistencies in their accounts. In the case of one of the key witnesses, Michael Cohen, they'll hammer on his credibility because he is a convicted felon.
In a separate case today, a judge will hear arguments over the $175 million bond in Trump's civil fraud case, where he was found liable of falsely inflating his real estate assets. The New York Attorney General is asking the judge to void that bond payment, saying the bond company has failed to show it has the money to cover the amount. And another big legal battle for the former president is this Thursday, when the Supreme Court hears arguments on Trump's presidential immunity claim and the January 6 election interference case. Former Republican Congresswoman Liz Cheney, in a New York Times op-ed today, urges the Supreme Court to issue its ruling on immunity quickly and decisively, adding, if delay prevents this Trump case from being tried this year, the public may never hear critical and historic evidence developed before the grand jury. And back here at the courthouse in Lower Manhattan, Trump's hush money criminal trial is expected to take at least 6 weeks with court in session 4 days per week. Rhiannon?
All right, Morgan Norwood live in Manhattan. Thank you for that. The other big story this morning is the growing concern about security at Columbia University as protests stemming from the Israel-Hamas war intensify. And one rabbi is now urging Jewish students to leave campus. This morning, Columbia University is boosting security ahead of the Passover holiday with more protests expected around campus. The school now adding 35 guards and more than 100 additional safety personnel. Pro-Palestinian demonstrators have gathered at the school since last week, rallying against the Israel-Hamas war and at times using violent rhetoric. Videos online show protesters promising to carry out massacres, similar to the Hamas attack of October 7th, chanting phrases like, "We are Hamas." A rabbi associated with the university is now urging Jewish students to go home, saying Columbia University's public safety and the NYPD cannot guarantee Jewish students' safety. New York's mayor says he's horrified by the hate speech, but says because Columbia is private property, the NYPD can't stay on campus unless the school requests it. Police made multiple arrests at a protest near campus Saturday, days after arresting more than 100 people on campus when the university's president asked law enforcement to clear out an encampment.
The mass arrests and the suppression of students, I would say that's galvanized us. This is nothing compared to what people in Palestine are dealing with. People in Gaza, they are starving. They have lost everything.
Overseas, the Israeli military is vowing to carry out a ground offensive targeting militants in the southern Gaza city of Rafah, where airstrikes yesterday killed 22 people, including 18 children, according to the Hamas-run health ministry. Meanwhile, Israeli leaders are criticizing an expected decision by the U.S. to withhold military aid from a unit of the Israeli military accused of human rights violations in the West Bank, an unprecedented move that could widen the rift between President Biden and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
And we have breaking news now from Tel Aviv. The head of Israel's military intelligence has resigned over the failures stemming from that October 7th attack. This is the first senior figure to step down after the Hamas attack.
Here in the U.S., a 29-year-old man is in custody in Los Angeles after allegedly breaking into the mayor's official residence. Police say Mayor Karen Bass and her family were at home at Getty House when the suspect broke in through a glass door early yesterday. The mayor and her family are okay. No word yet on the suspect's motive. Security at the mayor's home is now being examined.
The Supreme Court takes up a case today that could influence how cities all across the country confront the issue of homelessness. The case involves whether homeless people can be fined. ABC's Allison Cossack explains.
This morning, the Supreme Court takes up the issue of homelessness and what cities and towns can do about it. The question: can cities ticket, fine, or possibly jail homeless people who sleep outside in public areas? Or does that violate the Eighth Amendment, which prohibits cruel and unusual punishment?
There's no place to go. I was holding down 2 jobs when I was out here, and still not enough.
ABC's Devin Dwyer traveled to Grants Pass, Oregon. That city's crackdown began this legal battle.
So the city came in and said, you can't camp right there on those wood chips.
The officer said I was too close to the playground and I was too close to the fence.
The case shines a spotlight on an issue cities are grappling with nationwide: how to balance public health and safety.
We've had shootings in our parks. We've had fights in our parks. Chronic drug abuse in our parks.
In 2013, the city passed an ordinance banning anyone from sleeping in public. But with no public shelters inside city limits, a homeless group sued and won.
The reality is the only thing that works is more permanent, affordable housing.
Brian Boteller runs the only private homeless shelter in town, but it's only half full. The shelter has religious requirements and bans smoking, drinking, and pets.
That's the big question. Is there nowhere else to go? Is there just nowhere else that they want to go?
Elected officials from both parties are urging the Supreme Court to make it easier for cities to clear tent encampments.
There's those of us that are struggling and fighting and taking one step out as we're digging out of the hole.
After today's arguments, the court's ruling is expected before the end of June. Rhiannon, Andrew?
Allison, thank you. Terry Anderson, one of the longest held hostages in U.S. history, has died. The longtime Associated Press correspondent was abducted by Hezbollah in Lebanon in 1985. It was nearly 7 years until he was freed. Anderson died at his home north of New York City from complications following heart surgery. He was 76.
Happy Earth Day, everyone. President Biden will mark the day by visiting a national park in Virginia, and a new poll finds 45% of adults in the U.S. say that they are more concerned about climate change in the past year than they were before. That includes about 6 in 10 Democrats and a quarter of Republicans. ABC News has launched a series called The Power of Us, People, the Climate, and Our Future, featuring reports on the climate challenges we all face and possible solutions. Those will air on all ABC News platforms all throughout this week.
Time for your Earth Day weather. So Denver saw more than 6 inches of snow over the weekend, the biggest snowstorm this late in the season in some 17 years. It'll melt quickly with temperatures rising to nearly 80 this week, but it still feels like winter in much of the country with frost advisories and freeze warnings from Arkansas all the way to New England. Temperatures across that region are mostly in the 30s this morning. Checking today's high temperatures, mid-60s around the Great Lakes, 70s on the West Coast, nearly 100 in Phoenix.
Coming up, work begins on a major new high-speed train in the U.S. We'll tell you the cities it will link.
But first, a potential ban on TikTok moves one step closer to reality after a weekend vote in Congress. So what happens next?
And later, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame announcing its newest induction.
Hey guys, thanks so much for tuning in. We've got some updated information. As you just saw, Trump on trial. Is he guilty? Is he not? Let us know. Take our poll and let us know what's going on. Will this affect the election? Will this affect the way things are being done when it comes to who's able to run and not run? Let us know, and we're excited to see what's going to happen. Stay tuned for more information to come, and we'll see you in the next one.